Well, hello, General Hospital Daily Recap fans. Today's daily recap is for Tuesday, June the 3rd, 2025. Michael's trial is actually underway. It's underway. And my voice is kind of acting up again, y'all. But it was real windy yesterday out here, so I think it's allergies. But anyway, Carly was the first to take the witness stand for Diane, and she did pretty well. Carly didn't go off the rails the way Carly could do. But before the trial began, before everybody walked in, Sasha's there, and actually Nina, Drew, and Willow walked up, and they could see Carly and Michael and Jason. Well, then Sasha walks up to them from around that corner. And Nina sees Sasha and she's like, oh, right? So Sasha goes in first, and then Carly goes in, and Michael and Jason were going to go in because Diane said court's getting ready to start. As they were getting ready to go in, Diane says, hey, wait, look, I need to speak to both of you. And she said, Jason, you need to observe this trial, this hearing from afar. And he said, what? But I'm supposed to testify for you. He was on the witness list to testify. She says, no, I'm rethinking that. She said, because Rick Lansing will make this all about you and Sonny. How dangerous you guys are. Because she had already told Sonny, oh, no. You can't be nowhere near this, right? So Jason says, what? She goes, she's going to use the fact. He's going to bring up the bombing, but he's really going to key in on you. So then Jason says, well, then I just won't testify. But I want to be there for Michael. She says, whether you testify or not, Jason, Rick is going to point to you and make his arguments, his damning comments, right? And so Jason looked at Michael. He goes, how do you feel about that? So Michael says, well, you know what? I would love to have you there, but I do understand what Diane is talking about. So I'm okay. So Jason says, all right, because I definitely don't want to, you know, hurt the case or just be a diversion. So Jason leaves. He actually goes to Sonny's and he talks to Sonny. Dante was still there talking to Sonny, and Sonny was just saying, you're just gonna have to give him time. Look how long it took us, Dante. And Dante actually says, look, I'm here. I'm here because I need to apologize to you. I gave you such a hard time when I found out you were my father. He says, even though you didn't know, he says, yeah, I was mad at Ma, but I forgave Ma and gave her a pass way before I ever forgave you, and you didn't know. He says, now I see the position you were in. And he goes, yeah, but Dante, you and I are unique in this situation. You are able to understand exactly what Gio was going through. And you'll be able to act accordingly. And so he goes, now, you need to get to the court. Dante says, you know what? I got to go. I got to get to the court. And Sonny says, yeah, you need to be there for your brother. And make sure you support him. He goes, no, I am, Dad. Right? So um then we have Jason came over and they were talking. So like I said, Carly went first, and then Detective Chase went next. And Diane, of course, brought up the fact that you were married to her once, weren't you? And he goes, yes. And so she goes, did she have an affair when you were married to her? And Chase looked, and Willow, her eyes got big. And he goes, well, that was a different. She goes, no, no, no. The yes or no answer, detective. Yes or no. Did Willow take Corinthos have an affair when you were married to her? And he goes, yes. And Drew's kind of like, right? So Rick cross examines, and Rick is like, okay, wait, whoa. Detective Chase, who did Willow have the affair with? And he goes, Michael Corinthos. And Rick says, okay, no further questions, right? Whatever. So then we have Tracy. Tracy got up there, or maybe Dante came before Tracy. I can't remember. It doesn't really matter. Dante did a good job, but Rick had Dante reading from Michael's criminal file, his record. Remember when Michael went to prison for a couple months um, for it was involuntary manslaughter, right? And so he goes, tell me, and did he or did he not kill Claudia Zakara? And he goes, yeah, but there were no, detective, you know, just answer the question. And he looked, he goes, yes, he did. And he Rick kind of pretty much just wanted to establish that fact. So now Diane cross-examined. She goes, okay, detective, I want you to actually now elaborate on the circumstances. Why did Michael ultimately kill Claudia Zakar? And he said, because his mother, he was trying to protect his sister. His mother, Carly Corinthos, was in labor. And Claudia had kidnapped her. Well, Claudia kidnapped his mother. His mother went into labor. By the time Michael found them in his cabin, Carly had already delivered Jocelyn. Claudia Zakara already had the baby and was getting ready to leave with the baby. And Michael tried to stop her any way he knew how. Now, the thing is, I think Michael was 19, 18 or 19 when it happened. I would have liked for Dante, for not Alexis, Diane, let it come out that how old was Michael Corinthos when this happened, right? Because he was young, maybe even been 17, you know. But anyway, so Diane says, so, oh, okay. So in other words, he was protecting his sister from being kidnapped. And Dante said, yes. And she goes, no further questions. So Dante uh walks down. And then it was so funny. Tracy got up there, right? She got on the stand, and Diane established right off. Miss Quartermain, you and Michael Corinthos, you have a kind of a what tumultuous relationship, right? And Tracy looked at her and says, yeah, that would be correct. However, it's tumultuous in business. In business. But as far as family, oh no. Michael is, like, she almost says, pinnacle, cornerstone to the Quartermain family. She says, Michael, my brother Alan, and my sister-in-law Monica, their son AJ is Michael's father. And they adored Michael. And the family loved Michael. She said, so as far as family is concerned, oh no, I am here to support my great nephew. And so then Rick cross-examines and he goes, on the night of blah, 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 which was a couple of days ago, you were arrested, Miss Quartermain. What were the charges? She looked at him. She says, what does that have to do with the trial? Right? And the judge says, Miss Quartermain, answer the question. She looked, no, Rick goes, Miss Quartermain, you're under oath. Answer the question again. This is not about me. It's about that cheating. She just was ripping Willow to shreds, right? And Rick said, Your Honor. And so she looked at Tracy. She goes, Miss Quartermain, answer the question. And Rick said, what were the charges you were arrested? And so she said, for alleged drugging of Drew Kane, right? And so Rick says something because in my mind, I'm like, oh, he was trying to discredit her as a witness, but it still had nothing to do with Mike, the case. But I guess he was trying to say Tracy's a hostile witness. And for what she did to Drew, that, we can't really take into account what she said. But yeah, you could, really. To me, Tracy, that coming out, her alleged drugging of Drew meant nothing because the trial wasn't about her. So when the judge says, you may step down, Miss Quartermain, she got her purse and she says, okay, Diane, I've done my job. Now you do yours. Diane turns and she looks at her like, God, just go burst out, make your statement on your way out the door. And so the judge says, Miss Miller, call your next witness. Now, Diane's next witness was supposed to be Christina. But Rick had called Alexis and told Alexis that Diane has Christina on the witness list. And she better come down and get Christina. And because she's like, why would I, come down? He goes, because when I get to cross-examining her, that lunatic of a daughter of yours is subject to say anything. See, Rick doesn't want his good thing messed up, right? So Alexis came down there and it was a break. And Christina was standing in the hallway. Dante was standing out there too. And Alexis comes up and Christina's like, Mom, what are you doing here? And she goes, oh, I'm taking you out of here. Because you're not about to get you and I put in jail. And so she took her out to her office. And Christina says, I need to help my brother. And Alexis says, I know you wanted to help your brother. But Christina, you're too volatile. And I know how Rick will cross-examine you. And we can't afford for you to lose it. So, no, you won't be testifying. And she goes, just because you found out, you can't. And Alexis looked at her, says, oh, I can and I will. See, how I choose to cover things up, you don't have a say in it. So, I think it was Marco came in and said, Miss Miller called. Miss Miller wants to know why you took Christina from the courthouse. And so Diane looked at him. She goes, Alexis looked at him. She says, I'll deal with Diane. I'll call her. So Christina says, no, I will talk to Diane and I will tell her that me testifying today, being cross-examined by Rick, was too traumatic, and it was going to remind me way too much of the last time Rick cross-examined me on the witness stand. She looks at Alexis, and Marco looks at her, and she goes, "We haven't met. I'm Alexis's daughter, Christina. I'm the I forget the word she used, but I'm the black sheep. I'm the embarrassment of the family." And he just looks at her, and Alexis is like, see, this is why. you know, this right here's why. So anyway, but before all that happened, Marco was really trying to convince Alexis to let him really get to the root of this Dullos LLC. And she goes, "No, I've vetted him. I'm perfectly capable of handling it." He goes, "If you got tangled up into something accidentally, come to me because I have excellent experience on how to handle situations like this." So Alexis is like, "Are you trying to say I'm embezzling money?" And he said, no, but like I said, you could have gotten caught up into something unintentionally. I need you to know that I can help." And she says, "Well, that's good to know. But no, this company is on the up and up." And he's just looking at her. Sure. Look, he's still going to be investigating. Watch. Watch. So I'm saving Geo and Brooklyn for last. Now, Jocelyn, okay, the pool is open. Metro Court pool is open. Now, let's get back to the trial. That's all of the witnesses. Oh, no, no, no. They had the brief recess where Alexis took Christina, and Dante comes in, and Diane says, "Oh, Dante, can you tell Christina to come in because we're getting ready to go back into session and I'm calling her next." And he goes, "Christina's not here anymore." And she said, "Wait a minute, what?" She said, "Christina's not here. Alexis took her." And Diane said, "She did what?" And that's when Diana called the office, right? And she goes, "But I needed Christina's testimony as, you know, a family member, but one that observed all the events that happened." So Michael said, "Well, I have an idea on who could testify." And as soon as he said that, everybody, you know what I said? Jocelyn. Jocelyn would be much better on the stage, even though she could be a hardhead. She's much better than Christina. And in reality, Jocelyn was around for way more of that. What Willow did, the whole 9 yards, than Christina. Remember how Christina kind of took a back seat? She was like, Jocelyn and Carly are up there. And I forget who it was, said, "Well, you're his sister too." You know? So Jocelyn knew more. Okay. And Jocelyn is closer to her brother Michael. And Jocelyn has confronted Willow and Nina way more than Christina ever had. Christina's famous for trying to make friends with the villains and the family hated folks, right? So anyway, Jocelyn was there at the poolside with Trina and Kai. They got their little swimsuits on, and um, Sidwell, Jordan were meeting with Professor Dalton. Jocelyn comes to the pool with her swimsuit on, and Emma's sitting there because she's with talking to Kai and Trina, and she sees Jocelyn. Jocelyn walks up, "Hey, Trina, hey, Kai." She act like Emma wasn't even there, right? And she ends up they're saying, "Well, you gonna get in the pool?" She goes, "Yeah, but I'm actually working right now." So she goes over to Dalton's table, and Emma's just looking at her the whole time. And she was telling Trina how Jocelyn stabbed her in the back and took the job she wanted. And Trina says, Jocelyn would never do that. And Jocelyn wouldn't have a job unless she earned it. She was standing up for her best friend. So anyway, Dalton, she goes, Professor, I just came over here to tell you that I sent the emails out that you wanted sent out this morning. And he goes, well, thank you, Jocelyn. And Sidwell looks and he goes, oh, you know what? By the way, let me introduce you to Mr. Jen Sidwell and Jordan Ashford. And so Jocelyn's like, well, hi. So he goes, I think you already know Miss Ashford. And she goes, yeah, but I'm used to either calling her Commissioner Ashford or Deputy Mayor Ashford. And so Jordan said, well, now, Jocelyn, it's just Jordan. So anyway, and Jen Sidwell said, you know what, have we met? Because you look familiar to me. And Jocelyn looked at him and Jordan says, you've met her mother, Carly Spencer. Jocelyn does kind of resemble her mother. He goes, that's it, whatever. And so Professor Dalton said, Jocelyn, would you like to sit down, join us? And she goes, why, yes, because of course she's working for the WSB, right? Trying to get some information. But as she's sitting there, the conversation goes on. Then she gets the phone call. We knew it was for her to come to court, but they didn't have her address it. She just says, oh, I have to take this. And then the court's in session. The judge is just coming back in. And she says, okay, Miss Miller, it's time for you to call your next witness. And Diana's scrambling because Christina's gone, right? Her last witness is Michael. So she goes, Your Honor, my witness, she goes, Miss Miller, you either call a witness or you go to closing arguments. So Jocelyn then walks in and she goes, Your Honor, I have a witness, but can I have a brief recess just to refer or confer with my witness? And Rick says, Your Honor, we don't need the court's time wasted. Miss Miller should have been prepared. So the judge looks at Rick and says, you know what, counselor, I happen to agree. Like I said, Miss Miller, you either call your witness or rest your case. So she goes, yep, all right. And Carly's nervous. Carly had already texted Jocelyn, remain calm on the stand. Remain calm. Because Jocelyn could be a hothead, right? Just like her mama. So anyway, Diane calls Jocelyn, and Jocelyn did very well. She kept cool, calm, and collected, and Jocelyn did have more of the inside knowledge, right? The inside knowledge of what happened in the case. You know what, everybody? I was wrong with Tracy on the stand. It just hit me as I'm talking about Jocelyn. Rick, it wasn't the ketamine, the drugging of Drew that he was referring to that she was arrested for. It was for kidnapping Wiley and Amelia. Right? And so she goes, it wasn't kidnapping. The kids were a little bit restless, so I had my driver, Yuri, drive them around a bit. That's it. So it was about kidnapping, not the ketamine charges. So anyway, Jocelyn, Rick is cross-examining Jocelyn, and he's asking about when the children were taken away from their mother and their home. How that was what was it, unlawful? They were kidnapped from or unlawfully taken away from their home and their mother. And Jocelyn says, well, actually, no. See, Willow was not living with the kids in their home at the time. Willow wasn't even there. The kids were with their grandmother, Nina Reeves. And it wasn't unlawfully taken because there was a signed order from the judge to take the kids. And I thought, well said, Carly. I mean, Jocelyn, well said. And Rick looked at her and goes, like, I kind of underestimated you, Miss Jax, right? So then he came back and he asked another question. I forget what it was. But one thing he did ask Chase, when Chase was on the stand, he says, when you all came and took the kids from Miss Reeves' apartment, were they scared and upset about being removed? And Chase looked at Rick and said, actually, no. Wiley was quite excited and happy to be able to go back to his house. Uh-oh. Right? So anyway, that's pretty much it for the trial. Tomorrow's gonna be Wednesday. We're gonna ramp up into Friday. I think Friday's when Sasha's gonna go into labor because Rick hasn't called any of his witnesses yet. Okay. But one of the things, Rick, he gave Nina a look when he said, no, I've got some great witnesses, telling Diane. Oh, I've got some rabbits up my hat. And he looks at Nina and Nina just looks at him. But then Sasha comes and she sits down behind Nina because she's actually a witness for the prosecution or the opposite side, right? Because it's not a criminal trial. And that's when Nina kind of looks at her and smiles and kind of nods, and Sasha kind of smiles at her, and Nina's thinking, oh no, yeah, Nina. So anyway, let me see. I think I've covered everything. Oh, by the way, everybody, where's Jack Brennan? We haven't seen Brennan in forever. I'm telling you, I don't know. So let's go to Geo. I do have a clip. Now, if the clip plays a little loud, everybody, turn your volume down while you're listening to the clip. Because I notice when I listen to the clip in the video, it's louder than I'm talking. So just turn your volume down if it's a little too loud for you. This one, we're going to see if I can get away with 3 minutes of it. We'll see if YouTube kind of dings me. We'll see. But I'm going to share my screen. Let me share my screen. And we're going to get this video started. Share screen. Share with computer sound. Here we go, everybody. And we're going to share.
Believe anything that any of you say to me.
Okay, well, maybe you shouldn't. We lied to you your entire life, and I'm sorry for that. Don't you apologize, and don't you act like we did a terrible thing. We found you a good home, and wasn't Camilla a wonderful mother to you?
Yes, but...
But, no buts. She loved you with all her heart. And to this day, you love her the same.
Well, if she loved me so much, why did she lie to me every single day of my life? Even when she was in hospice. On her deathbed, she still didn't tell me the truth.
Because we spoke to Camilla before she passed about whether or not to tell you the truth, and she agreed that it would be too confusing for you. Wait a minute. She agreed? Did the two of you pressure a dying woman into keeping your secret? You should be ashamed of yourself for accusing your mother of such a thing. That was Camilla's choice. You sure about that? Very. Camilla did not want to pass on and have you grieving and questioning your whole entire life.
Wait, so when you came to visit her in hospice, that's what you were talking about? Whether or not to tell me that my mother wasn't my mother?
It was not like that at all. Camilla made her wishes very clear. She didn't want to die with you thinking that she wasn't your mother. I guess we're just gonna have to take your word on it. You know what, Brooklyn? If you had wanted to keep Gio, we wouldn't have stopped you. And Gio If Camilla had wanted to use her last breath to tell you the truth, we would have worked things out.
I get why you didn't tell me the truth about Gio before Camilla died, but after? Maybe I could have helped him. But you made sure I never got that chance. Saying all you wanted to do was protect my son. But after Camilla died, you left him without any parents at all.
But we
No! Get out. You're not welcome here anymore.
Fine, I'll pack my stuff.
Don't bother. I'll have the staff pack your things and send it to you in Bensonhurst. I want the two of you out of my sight right now.
Come on, Mom. Well, let's go.
Gio, I know how hard this is, but I'd really like it if you stayed. I know we can work through this.
I get that they lied to the both of us. But the fact is, none of you wanted me. The feeling is mutual.
All right, that was the clip. One thing that I did like from that clip, when Brooklyn was blaming them, right? One thing that Lois said, she says, Brooklyn, if you would have wanted your child, Ma and I would have made it work. But you wanted the adoption. And I was like, ooh, yikes. Yeah, that is true, right? That is true. And then they were just telling Gio that, Camilla did not want him not to think that that was his mother. So, there's more than one way to look at it. Sonny was telling Jason that, hey, he doesn't like what Lois did, right? He understands what she did, doesn't like it, but Lois is his dearest and oldest friend. So no, he's not turning his back on Lois. Okay. But did you see the way when Gloria was like, and when she's talking to Gio, that's nonsense. Camilla was your mother and she loved, she was trying to shame him and shame Brooklyn. And Brooklyn shut her up and said, no. And it kind of shook Gloria a bit. That's when she said, no, I want you both gone out of my sight. I will. Lois goes, well, now I'll just go pack my stuff. She goes, no, oh, no. I'll have the staff pack your stuff. Want you out of my sight now. So Lois goes by Sonny's on her way out of Dodge. And she says, Sonny, Brooklyn is sending me and Ma away. I don't know for how long. She goes, please, Gio has no one to look after him. Can you please? Sonny says, I will look after our grandson. And she goes, that's all I can ask. And she goes out of Sonny's door, right? Now we know Lois's character is in and out of GA. She'll be gone for a year or two, right? And when Lois is really gone, that's when Olivia, it's really there. It's funny. It's like they can't afford them both too long. They did have a little period where Lois and Olivia were talking as friends, but basically it's one or the other. And right now is getting ready to be Olivia, probably, because she's going to have to reconcile, and she's got a grandson and she has a story to tell in this too, or some parts to play. So anyway, everybody, I am going to, that was it today. I'm going to, I was reading the comments in Comment Corner, and somebody was saying just how much they really missed some of the comments being read on Comment Corner. So what I'm going to do, I am going to try to get to doing 5 minutes of Comment Corner. And the reason why is, now that I'm doing the recap for Beyond the Gates, goodness, it's getting late. And the later I am to finishing the videos, the later you all get to see the new daily recap. So I was trying to cut down some time, but you know what? I can do 5 minutes, so let's do that. I'm starting from the bottom up. The bottom up. Bonnie says, Lucky is proposing. Liz looked overwhelmed though. Gio and Sunny seems were great. Sunny has matured so much. Wowza. Closing scene with Gio walking in at the end. Can't wait for tomorrow. Phenomenal performance from Brooklyn and Lois. And Gio's acting is getting much, much better. I agree. It really has. Really didn't watch Christina and Michael. Boring. Rocco's acting was great as well. Lulu trying to defend her actions. And then Miss K says, Sonny also said to Gio when he said, why was he paying for the music? Sonny said he saw something special in him. That was a great scene. Yes, that was. And then Bonnie says, we heard it. And then let me scroll up. We've got Alicia says, didn't Liz do the same thing as Lucky when she thought Finn pushed Peter down the hospital stairwell, killing him? Alexis was a purity fool, or is a purity fool. I just can't with her. Alexis makes the wrong choices every time. Melody says, yeah, Lucky wasn't lied to though, and Lucky wasn't hurt by Peter. I love Liz, but she also she also knew, haha, Jake Drew was Jason. That's true. She knew he was Jason and she wanted to keep him as Jake. So she was even trying to marry him because she said finally it was going to be her turn. Yeah, that was Elizabeth. Didn't even tell him. Also helped Nicholas by giving maternity care to Ace's mom, which was Nell. No, not Nell, which was goodness, that's horrible that I cannot remember. Esme. That Nicholas had locked up in the room, yeah, at Windermere. So no, she isn't innocent, but Lucky should be loyal to Liz first, and Lucky couldn't mention the blackmail, right, without incriminating Alexis. Would Liz be understanding towards Alexis? Nah, Liz can't hold water that much. And then Melody says Alexis and Portia are just being stupid. And then we have Melody says, but the grand prize goes to Alexis. Yep. And then Alicia says, I don't disagree, but if he didn't say anything about Alexis, maybe he thought it wasn't his story to tell. And Liz is basically doing the same thing Alexis is doing, protecting Christina. And guess what? It's not that whole blackmail part. The only reason he would tell Liz is if he wanted her not to really look bad on Rick, then he would tell her, right? Bonnie says, how can Lucky be certain that Christina would never do something again? He can't be because Christina's not even certain. Let her fly off the handle. She absolutely would, right? Plus, people keep covering up this nutcase. And then Melody says, no matter what, Christina needs to be institutionalized for a bit. Maybe she's bipolar like her dad. I believe it. And her half brother, Morgan. Absolutely, I believe it. Christera says, people unfortunately covered for Alexis in the past. Arg. Yeah, I guess they did. And then Maddie says, does Alexis not realize that when it comes out, it will be bad for the firm? Diane's firm. Yep. Patty says she doesn't care about Diane. She doesn't care about Ace or his trust fund. She just cares about herself and her nasty doggone. I'm not going to say what you put down, Patty. Trick of a daughter uh, of hers. I'm over it. I'm sick of seeing her sacrifice Molly's happiness for Christina. It's gross. Alexis is not being a good parent. She's not a good attorney, and she's not a good person. She might as well crawl back inside that bottle. Ooh, goodness, Patty. Uh, she's been living that she's been living in for the past 25 years because I'm over her. Okay, Patty, goodness, tell us how you really feel. And then P. Merle says to Patty, I hear that. Soon Alexis will be drunk, disbarred, and locked up. All right, everybody, that is 5 minutes of comment corner. Comment corner. Thanks for the comments. I will be back tomorrow with another daily recap of General Hospital.